Already the 26th of June, and it's 10 a.m. In the New York area, Eastern Standard Time. And I haven't been here for a couple of weeks, and I apologize for that. But I was away and back, and happy to be with you. And thank you for joining, everybody. Now, for the housekeeping side of things, I want to say you can see this podcast and live event on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter X, and on podcasts, different channels of podcasts that you are familiar with. Spotify, Amazon, Apple podcasts, etc. And all this for one reason, only one, is that I want you to realize, all the people that watch and that know me a little bit, how much I appreciate not only that you are clients, friends, or just people who are watching or part of my network on LinkedIn. And this is really I would say, the one that I'm focusing on in social media, just because I don't have really time, nor do I have the mindset to be interested in more than one. But, I will delegate that very soon to someone else to do for me in terms of the social media activity. What I don't want to delegate is to be with you and to have this privilege of talking to you. So if you have any comments you want to make while I'm with you, please do not hesitate. This is only possible for me to read, like everybody else that under me, for this first time that I show this podcast on the vertical, format, just to try it. We always try something new. And those comments are visible. And if I see them, I can try to answer if it's a question real time, or I will get back to you. And I also invite you, please, when you watch this on the recorded side of things, this is recorded and stays as a recorded video on all these social media channels, to make your comments, really show a little bit what you think, give your opinion, your insights. This is, I hope, subject and topics that you all appreciate, because they should be topics that concern you. Why? Well, because by coaching people all day long that are managers, executives, senior managers, senior executives, part of boards, or for private companies, public companies, non-for-profit companies and organizations, individual professionals and entrepreneurs, all those people that I have the privilege to coach every day. What they share, what they want to be coached on, are the topics that I'm bringing here. One of them that is very common is conflict resolution. And inside this conflict resolution topic, there is difficult conversations, and it's unavoidable to have difficult conversations. I want to start with a funny story, a true story. It was my first job ever. My first job was to be an assistant manager in a very prestigious hotel in Paris, the Plaza Athénée, Paris. And I was an assistant manager. That means I was, in fact, assisting the manager of the hotel, and especially in this particular job, to handle conversations that are difficult with guests, especially. Or it was to collect money because they were not paying. And, nights were very expensive in that hotel. I don't know, maybe today you pay €2,000 a night, or maybe more, 2,600 euro a night for staying at the Plaza Athénée. So it's the embodiment of personalized service, of luxury. And people are, there is a good amount of people that can afford that and are appreciating, but it goes very much beyond this kind of thing. So I was in charge of all the difficult aspects of handling a guest's relationship. And that taught me a lot, because I got very involved after that in my career with customer experience, with patient experience. So that's where I really think I learned all the foundation, all the basics, but more than the basics, about guest relations. And it was also the premises, the very beginning of what we call today CRM, customer relationship management systems. So I was involved with technology after that, and I was auditing hotels' operations to specify what was needed to develop a software or an application back then that were called a PMS, a property management system, where the component of customer or guest relations and contacts, all the data about the customer, had to be addressed. And this was all brand new at the time, but it stayed with me very, very inside of me. And the stories like this, I extrapolate, but the real story, the funny story I want to share with you is that the general manager I was reporting to, the second one, because the first one was an exemplary personality, very well known at the time. His name was Paul Bougenot, and he was a chief concierge that took the position of general manager. Very unique, probably the only one in the world and in the history of hospitality to be a chief concierge with the golden keys, taking the job of leading the whole team to serve those guests at the Plaza Athénée. That was the person who hired me. That's the person who was my role model. He was my mentor and remains in my mind as one. And his successor was the manager. That was the manager of the hotel. I don't say his name because what I'm going to say here is really funny. And it's funny. When there was a difficult situation with a guest, he would flee. He would avoid it. He would avoid it at all cost. That's why he had me. I was his buffer. My role with the first general manager, Paul Bougenot, was different. But with him, it was especially to cover for him all the difficult cases. And they were all, very famous people, very, very famous people, celebrities, if not each and every client was. And I had to deal with those people. And when it has to go with collecting money from them, members of a royal family somewhere, or a king, just a king, or a secretary of the king, because he was the one to handle his problems, or going to an embassy and getting punched in my face because I was having the audacity to claim the money. That I can tell it was Libya at the time. So when you go, because Gaddafi was a guest as well. Anyway, all these things that happened, my manager would not handle. And it's amazing that I'm sharing that story when I think about conflict resolution or difficult conversations, but his choice was to avoid it. That's a little bit of a coward, a weak position to take. Why not facing it? Because you're confident that you can eventually not only resolve it, but make that difficult conversation a productive conversation, and take the difficulty of the conversation as an opportunity, right? When there's something difficult, it's definitely an opportunity to take and embrace and address and maybe be prepared for. I always say, if you have the opportunity to prepare and the challenge is even high, the stake is high, it's a high-stake conversation. For whatever is at stake, it's a high-stake conversation. What do you do with that? Well, I think that if you know who you're dealing with and you know that it's upcoming, then yes, prepare it. And me, the coach, in many, many instances, and that's what I enjoy the most of my profession, is to help my client, is to coach my client in this preparation. We role play it. We visualize this moment. We project ourselves in the space at the time with all the elements that we can eventually anticipate together. And now we position ourselves in that space, in that moment. How do we bring ourselves to that difficult conversation, to that conflict? How do we want to resolve it? What do we do for this very person that I can do with my own soul, my DNA, my character, my persona, and bring myself to this moment and get the best of it and bring the best of myself? And if I have to work on my emotion, that's the first thing probably that comes up. Create a boundary, an emotional boundary that nothing affects me, that nothing will affect me, that my goal is to just resolve the issue or to support the person. I mean, back to my example, I never finished my thought, but the story was, yes, he was avoiding the guest, but you know how? I mean, one way, and I don't know if he was the one who did design this in his office or if it was his predecessor for another reason, But there was a little door at the back of his office in the library. You know, those kind of doors that are hidden doors, invisible doors, kind of integrated into the library. You would not know where is the knob to open it or something, or there would be a button to open it. That door would give access to a little staircase like that, those little spiral staircase, and he would be able to go downstairs and just leave the property or go to the restaurant. I don't know what, but flee from the problem, and physically do so. And he did it 99% of the time. If there would be a problem, someone going to his office, I want to see the general manager, I want to see the president, I want to see the owner of the hotel. And sometimes I want to buy the hotel. That was a reaction from those oil people back then, the Qataris and all of that, who were thinking that they owned the world because they had a lot of money, and they still have, and that they could buy the hotel just by being angry. And eventually it happened, by the way. But the general manager had this little door in the back of his office. Can you believe this? To flee the conflict, to flee the challenge of facing anger, dissatisfaction, complaint, all this issue of someone, a guest, that is not happy and wants to complain and wants to talk to the boss. Instead of facing it, he was fleeing it. And funny, and I think it is funny, you really can believe it. It's like a cartoon. Believe it, that door opens and he goes away and says, André, my assistant manager, come, you're the general manager just for this occasion. I promote you. Handle this guy. And I did it. And that's how I learned a lot. So about conflict resolution, it's not in the school of coaching or my certification or whatever that I learned it, or through experience also. But that's where I started to learn about it, maybe in a very hard way. Because it was not fun most of the time to get, again, the punch. I really got a physical punch on my face because I was claiming the embassy of Libya to pay the bill for Mr. Gaddafi. So that's a little story, but that's a true one. And so what did I learn? And what do I bring here for the next 15 minutes? It's the preparation for it. If you have the opportunity to prepare, but I will tell you, most of the time you do have this opportunity to prepare. So we're going to talk about this. It's a methodology, like any methodology. I will suggest one. There is so many other ones. But I want to suggest one at least so that you take something away and you'll tell me if it works for you. But we're talking about, again, the challenge of a difficult conversation or a conflict that is coming up that I can prepare for. Then there is the other one, but I want to say the other one is that's the in the moment, spontaneous occurrence, right? The happenstance when things are coming when they're not expected. And it is a conflict, and it is a hard challenge. Someone angry, someone who shouts, yells. And it doesn't apply only to work, as you can imagine. It applies also to life in general and to your private life as well. I mean, I'm also, as you know, a certified mediator. And if I mediate a business case, a small court claim, which I do also between a worker who worked in a home, like a plumber or a mason, and there is a conflict between that worker and the household. And the conflict is always about or money or a work that hasn't been finished properly, and the dispute between the two. And one claims at the small court claim, and they call the mediator, because I'm registered in my local court claim court to handle this kind of mediation, and that saves time from the judge. Judges are so grateful that they have mediators to handle the problem and the case, and customers of clients of the mediators are very, very happy also, because they save a lot of money not spending this money in litigation fees with lawyers and attorneys. Sorry to be a competition to attorneys, but it is truly, especially in case of divorces, a huge saving and much more efficient than it is to go to court and handle that with a family judge or a judge in civil court. This is really the last thing you want to do, but this is something that happens. Now, a conflict between a couple, right? Husband and wife, or any partners in business, those conflicts can be very high conflicts. When we say very high, you've got in front of you people who are yelling to each other, not listening to each other, who are not, have never done it, by the way. It could be 20, 30 years of marriage without these people be able to communicate with each other or to listen to the other's point of view. And the mediator that I am, that I really take very heartedly, is to just say, hold on, you have chosen me as your mediator, and you both have done a volunteer act by asking me to be your mediator and by resolving your issue. And it's not resolving your issue that I'm going to be doing. It's to come to bring you to both to agree on very hard decisions you need to make about, child custody, about money, splitting things, and all the things that have to be counted when a couple has to separate. And sometimes, because I use coaching in mediation, I try to help them if I see the opportunity to communicate better. And sometimes, and really it happened, this couple comes back together and they give it another try. And that makes my day. If it's not, it makes my life. But it changes people's life. And you change the life and you change the world when you are able to bring peace between two conflictual parties, or when you bring peace of mind to someone who has so much conflicts in mind. You're dealing with all kinds of people out there at work or in life that have issues. And most of the time, those issues are artificially created. They should not be existing. That's why most of the time, I'm very optimistic that those conflicts can be resolved. One method is, first of all, a bold statement. Prepare, prepare, and prepare. Rehearse, rehearse, and rehearse. Visualize. Close your eyes. Imagine yourself in that very moment when you are going to be with this person or with a group of people in a conflicting conversation, in a confrontation. How do you handle that? How do you bring yourself so that these people are starting to listen to you? Is it that you are going to change? I mean, there is a debate coming up here in the US between two candidates for presidency. They were the same candidates last time. It's such a boring situation. Can you imagine? I mean, we are 4 years later and we have these two same candidates, over 70 years old and 80 years old, eligible to become president, and they want to be the president and have power over this country. And there will be a debate between the two. If it's not a confrontation, what is it? I'm not going to watch it because I'm really bored by this to the extreme degree. So I'm telling you that. But if you can give me your feedback, I would be interested. Analyze, watch. What do they do right and what do they do wrong in order to bring themselves to at least a sense of unity that they both represent a country and want this country to move to a good place, let's say. Because I think that someone who wants to be president and convince people to vote for them, they probably have a program and a plan to be elected. And if they have this plan and wants to put it to bring it to fruition, that this plan is a positive plan. I don't think there is a destruction plan unless it's a hidden agenda, but to destroy this country. But if it's not about destroying the country, then what do you come up with? And there are two people who are so different people, who have been so confrontational from the very beginning in a very divided country. What do you do with that? My method about this is to come with empathy. Can they do that? I don't think so. Empathy. Empathy means I give you a chance to exist. I give you a chance to have your own opinion. I give you the chance to be who you are and accept you as who you are. That's empathy. Empathy. I think it is empathy. I accept you as who you are. That's just to put the mindset before we get into the space in front of the confrontation. I decide what kind of mindset I want to have, especially the one I'm capable of having, the one I always dream to have, the one I do have in a natural sense, in a very easy way. It's me. It's part of me to have a growth mindset. It's part of me to be positive. It's part of me to always think that we can always come to to an agreement that things can be peaceful, that we are human beings, we can, not animals, we can just speak slowly, we can speak, in a low tone, we don't have to yell at each other. So if each time the person in the other side, if it's what I want to visualize now, is that I know I'm going to deal with someone who has this tendency of being angry, of being emotional, impulsive, of yelling, insulting me, because that's this person's weakness, that person cannot control himself or herself and is going to try to insult me, humiliate me. Let's say I take that as an extreme possibility. What do I do about it? What do I find in myself that I can bring to this moment in front of that person that will in fact disarm the person? The person will be surprised not to have anything in front that will be responsive to that. Let's say that you decide that you are not going to respond to arrogance, to insult, to humiliation, and stay extremely cold about it, and just decide on the kind of face, not a mask, what kind of expression you can have, a natural expression of yourself, saying, oh my God, you mind, poor guy, he's getting so angry, he has his blood pressure going up like crazy, he's damaging his health, he's damaging his mind, he's going to get depressed after that, he's going to regret everything he says, and he's in front of me doing all of that at this time, me watching him or watching her. If he could have that mindset, that's the first thing. Empathy and I would say pity on this person who is now demonstrating a huge amount of immaturity, a huge amount of lack of control. And I'm right in front of this person. I'm not meaning and pretending I'm better. I'm just now prepared. That means I knew that would happen. So my reaction to that is no reaction. Wait until the steam passes, and I can just now put a word that will be very different to this tonality that I have in front of me. I will bring the opposite energy, positive energy, calm, regrouped, thoughtful, and whichever opportunity I have to say something that will be relevant to this person, and I will prepare what it is, because I can also anticipate on what this person is going to try to be in conflict with me, like this debate tomorrow night. I think everything is predictable for this debate, everything. We know what they have against each other, and et cetera, et cetera. One is going to do this, one is going to do that. So predictable. What do you do to go exactly against the flow, the wind, the tempest, the hurricane that you're going to find in front of you, knowing that it's going to be a hurricane? It can be a hurricane that is noisy, like it can be a hurricane of lies, and a hurricane of negative energy, of negative personality, of somber, dark person that sees things always very dark and wants, in fact, bad for the person in front of him or for the country, let's say. And then there is moderators. I don't know how they're going to do this. But I personally think that the more you're prepared, and they are preparing themselves, but I don't know how they do that. I would be, for example, the advisor and coach to Mr. Trump, who is not, I think, very coachable. I would just tell him, how about being completely different to your usual approach of calling the person by a name, by insulting the person, or by bringing always that person problems and everything that you can say is a crook, is this, is that. And you might be right about it, or I don't know, but that's not the point. The point is you're not going to engage a conversation or demonstrate wisdom by going again on the same exact attacks and aggressivity and et cetera, et cetera. Why can't you change completely the paradigm? And I would say for him, for example, to him, I would say, how about focusing just on your plans, on your program, what you are proposing to the American people, for example, right? Just focus on that. Even in front of you, these guys are going to attack you, provoke you, let's say, right? Can you just be completely passive about this? Like a wall, you do not pay attention. All you are focusing on is sharing your plan with the American people watching, let's say, right? And on the other hand, for the other guy, knowing that he could deal with someone who's going to insult him, calling by a name, or do all of this and treat him and accuse him to be this and that and a crook and a liar and well, what do you do about that? Same thing. How can you be? And he's, I think, more capable of doing that, of being like a wall and to totally ignore this aggressivity and just focus on, again, your program, your message to the American people. That's all I ask you to do. And if it's about answering something that is asking you, because it's a debate, it should be a dialogue, it should be something between you and him. It's to just remain prepared on a certain tone, like music. You take one key and you will stay with that key. You hear yourself. You go in front of a mirror and you practice and practice this posture of calm and control. Calm and control. Calm and control. Only that. And then there is another goal maybe you might have for that, the last 2 minutes in this method I approach, I try to share with you, because it's preparation. It's to just mention something, have one sentence that will bring that person to think, just if it's about to think, and let that person leave the room with a sense of being treated fairly, and give that person a chance to take time to think of one thing you want to leave that person to think about. Let's say that could be a good idea. And say to him or to her, how about meeting again next week? And we continue the conversation. But I want to leave you with this thought. Please give it some thought. Are you ready to give it some thought? Do you commit to me that you are ready to give it some thought, some consideration? And that's it. That could be it. And you will see next time how to approach it now for a second level of conversation, until both of you have come to a conclusion or a realization that there is a common denominator somewhere, that we can come and reach an agreement somewhere. Two group of people, or two individuals, or three and three individuals, whatever it is, whichever the magnitude and the stake, the level of the stake that is in place, I will address all of this the way I'm sharing with you today. It's a decision you take to control this moment, to monitor this moment, and to negotiate with yourself what you allow yourself to say and to do, and not allow yourself to say and to do, which is called building a boundary or boundaries. And those boundaries, you practice them because you want to internalize everything until you get to this very moment. And if you want to touch to greatness, give it a lot of importance, because we have the tendency of taking conflict as something that is not important, or the person we are in conflict with to be wrong. But it's not about being right or wrong. It's about reaching an agreement. It's about being part of the same team. It's about integrating someone who has been resistant to change and try to bring that person and align with the change. So it's persuasion sometimes. Whatever this is, your goal can be reached just by preparing and thinking of something you might not think too much about. People who are very intellectual, who are very logical, have a hard time visualizing. So take a coach. Learn how to visualize. Learn how to project yourself to this moment of conflict. I'm 1 minute over. I want to say to all of you and wish you a very good end of this week. Tell you that next week we'll also meet on Wednesday at 10 a.m. And hopefully with a guest. I'm going back to that momentum of having guests every other week. But at least if I don't have a guest, I will have a topic to share with you. And please give me feedback. Give your feedback on LinkedIn, especially. Give your comments. I would really appreciate to have them for our readers, for our members, for the people who are a part of my networks. And please also subscribe to the YouTube channel, because when I ask you to do so, I see some of you doing it, and that gives us a lot of encouragement. Thank you again. Have a wonderful week, and see you soon. Bye.